November 20th, 1943. Betio Island, Tarawa Atoll. Dawn breaks over the bloodiest beach in Marine Corps history. In the shell-torn ruins near Red Beach 2, Corporal William Dean checks the ammunition belts one final time on his M1919 machine gun. The air-cooled Browning sits on its lightweight tripod, 250 rounds of 30-06 Springfield ammunition ready to feed. Around him, other Marine machine gun crews prepare their weapons amid the coral dust and smoke. The ground trembles. Through the morning haze comes a sound that will haunt survivors forever. Hundreds of Japanese soldiers launching a desperate counterattack, their Type 92 heavy machine guns firing in that distinctive slow tock-tock-tock rhythm that earned them the nickname Woodpecker. The Japanese crews struggle with their 122-pound weapons, feeding 30-round strips as fast as they can, while American M1919s pour out continuous streams of fire. What happens next will demonstrate the overwhelming superiority of American automatic weapons doctrine and reveal why the M1919 Browning became the backbone of US firepower, while Japan's Type 92 proved fatally inadequate for modern warfare. The American M1919. A 4 Browning had arrived in the Pacific Theatre as the evolution of combat-proven technology. Designed by legendary firearms engineer John Moses Browning as an air-cooled adaptation of his M1917 water-cooled machine gun, the M1919 represented American industrial warfare at its finest. The weapon fired the powerful .3006 Springfield cartridge at 400 to 600 rounds per minute from a 250-round cloth belt. The mathematics of destruction were simple but effective. Each 3006 round launched a 150-grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second from the M1919's 24-inch barrel, delivering lethal kinetic energy at ranges exceeding 1,500 yards. The M1919. A 4's design philosophy centered on practical effectiveness rather than theoretical perfection. Weighing just 31 pounds, with a 14-pound tripod bringing the total system weight to 45 pounds, the weapon could be carried and employed by a 2-man crew. The gun's relatively loose tolerances, criticised by some as reducing accuracy, actually enhanced reliability by allowing the weapon to function when fouled with sand, mud, or carbon buildup. The recoil-operated, belt-fed mechanism was simple enough that teenage Marines could master its operation after minimal training, yet robust enough to fire thousands of rounds without failure. By 1944, American factories had produced nearly 390,000 M1919 machine guns across all variants. Manufacturing was distributed across multiple contractors, with the Saginaw steering gear division of General Motors alone producing over 200,000 units. Buffalo Arms Corporation and Rock Island Arsenal contributed tens of thousands more. This massive production ensured that American forces in the Pacific were equipped with reliable, standardized automatic weapons at every level of organization. The U.S. Marine Corps deployed M1919 at the company level with 2 guns assigned to the weapons platoon. By 1945, Marine divisions fielded hundreds of these weapons, creating overlapping fields of fire that could annihilate any infantry assault. Standing in stark contrast was the Japanese Type 92 heavy machine gun. Named for the Japanese imperial year 2592, 1932 in the Gregorian calendar, this weapon represented Japan's attempt to modernize their automatic weapons based on the French Hotchkiss design. The Type 92 was a gas-operated, air-cooled weapon fed by 30-round metal strips and firing the 7.7 by 58 mm semi-rimmed cartridge. Despite its heavier caliber than earlier Japanese weapons, the Type 92 suffered from critical design limitations that would prove catastrophic in combat. The Type 92 fired its 7.7 mm rounds at approximately 450 rounds per minute, but the 30-round feed strips severely limited sustained fire capability. While the 7.7 mm cartridge was ballistically superior to Japan's earlier 6.5 mm rounds, The feeding system meant that crews spent more time reloading than firing. The Type 92 weighed 122 pounds complete with its tripod, a staggering 77 pounds heavier than the M1919A4's combined weight of 45 pounds. This massive weight differential came from over-engineering. The gun was built with excessive precision that actually hindered its battlefield performance. The Type 92's most critical flaw was its ammunition oiling system. Each gun incorporated an internal oil pump that lubricated cartridges as they fed into the chamber. In theory, this ensured smooth extraction in the absence of proper primary extraction. In practice, the oil attracted dirt, sand and debris in the jungle conditions of the Pacific, causing frequent and catastrophic jams. The precisely fitted parts, which might have impressed in peacetime demonstrations, became a liability when exposed to combat conditions. Unlike the M1919's loose tolerances that accommodated battlefield contamination, the Type 92's tight tolerances meant that even small amounts of debris could render the weapon inoperable. The feed strip system itself was problematic. The 30-round metallic strips were fragile and easily bent or damaged during transport and combat. Each strip took precious seconds to load, during which the gun could not fire. In contrast, American gunners could link multiple cloth belts together, creating continuous ammunition feeds of 500 rounds or more. The Type 92 also featured an unusual sight placement, offset to the right rather than centered, which complicated training and reduced accuracy during rapid target engagement. Japan produced approximately 45,000 Type 92 heavy machine guns throughout its entire production run from 1932 to 1945. Tokyo Gas and Electric Company, along with Hino Motors and Hitachi, manufactured these weapons with meticulous attention to peacetime standards that proved unsuitable for mass production. Each Type 92 required extensive hand-fitting of parts, making them expensive and time-consuming to produce. The United States, by contrast, manufactured nearly 390,000 M1919 machine guns during World War II alone, almost 9 times Japan's total production. This staggering disparity revealed the essential mismatch in industrial capacity between the two nations. The production philosophy differed dramatically. American manufacturers used automotive industry techniques, with General Motors' Saginaw division applying assembly line methods perfected for automobile production. Parts were completely interchangeable between manufacturers. A gun made by Buffalo Arms could use parts from Saginaw or Rock Island Arsenal without modification. Japanese Type 92s often required individual fitting of replacement parts, as the handcrafted nature of production meant that components from one gun might not fit another. By 1944, American factories were producing more M1919s in a single month than Japan produced Type 92s in an entire year. At Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, the night of October 24th to 25th, 1942, proved the importance of reliable automatic weapons. While Sergeant John Basilone earned his Medal of Honor manning M1917 water-cooled guns, M1919, a 4 crews throughout the marine perimeter demonstrated the air-cooled weapons' advantages. When Japanese forces of the Sendai Division attacked, marine machine gunners with M1919s could reposition their lighter weapons quickly, moving to threatened sectors while the heavier water-cooled guns remained in fixed positions. Private First Class Mitchell Page, who also earned the Medal of Honor that night, described the M1919's role. The air-cooled 30s were our mobile reserve. When the Japs broke through, we could grab the gun and tripod and run to plug the gap. At Tarawa in November 1943, Marine machine gun crews proved the M1919's versatility in amphibious warfare. Despite being soaked with seawater during the landing, M1919s were quickly put into action. Corporal James Russell of the 2nd Marine Division destroyed multiple Japanese positions with his M1919A4, advancing the gun by hand across the coral-strewn battlefield. The gun never quit, Russell later testified. We'd dump water from our canteens on the barrel to cool it, wipe the sand off the belt and keep firing. We burned through 10 boxes of ammo, 2,500 rounds, and never had a stoppage. The Japanese Type 92s defending Betio Island, by contrast, suffered constant malfunctions from coral dust mixing with the oiling system. The Battle of Saipan in June-July 1944 provided perhaps the most dramatic demonstration of American machine gun dominance. During the massive Banzai charge of July 7th, when 4,000 Japanese soldiers attacked American positions, M1919 crews of the 27th Infantry Division created interlocking fields of fire that turned the assault into a slaughter. Sergeant Thomas Baker's M1919 crew fired continuously for 6 hours, going through case after case of ammunition. We had spare barrels ready, his assistant gunner Carl Morrison recalled. When one got too hot, we'd swap it out in 10 seconds and keep shooting. The Japs just kept coming and we just kept killing them. Our gun alone must have dropped 200 of them. On Peleliu, in September 1944, the M1919's reliability in extreme conditions became legendary. Marines fighting in 115-degree heat found that while Japanese Type 92s seized from thermal expansion of their precisely fitted parts, M1919s continued functioning. Corporal Sterling Mace observed, "The Jap woodpeckers would fire a strip or two, then go silent, jammed again. Our 30s just kept hammering away. We knew we had fire superiority, and that gave us the confidence to keep advancing." The battle for Manila in February 1945 showcased urban warfare where mobility mattered. Marine and Army units equipped with M1919s could rapidly redeploy their weapons from building to building, window to window. The 45-pound total weight meant a 2-man team could run with the weapon system intact. Japanese Type 92 crews, burdened with 122 pounds of weapon and mount, were essentially immobile once emplaced. Lieutenant Colonel John Chason noted, "In city fighting, the ability to shoot and move was everything. Our machine gun teams could be in a position, fire a belt, and relocate before Japanese mortars could target them. The enemy's Type 92s were death traps. Too heavy to move quickly, they became fixed targets." The M1919's development stemmed directly from World War I experience and interwar innovation. The original M1917 water-cooled Browning had proven highly effective in France, but the Army recognised the need for a lighter, more mobile weapon for the mechanised warfare of the future. In 1919, Browning modified his design to use air cooling, creating a weapon that could be mounted on vehicles, aircraft, and carried by infantry. The Army Ordnance Department spent years perfecting the design through systematic testing and refinement. The development process revealed American military philosophy: extensive testing, user feedback incorporation, and continuous improvement. Between 1919 and 1936, when the M1919A4 was finalised, the weapon underwent dozens of modifications based on troop trials. The barrel was strengthened, the feed mechanism simplified, and the tripod redesigned for lower profile and lighter weight. Each change came from practical field experience rather than theoretical engineering. The .306 Springfield cartridge, standardized in 1906, had proven itself as an ideal military round through 2 decades of use, balancing power, range, and controllability. Japan's Type 92, conversely, represented an attempt to copy and improve upon foreign designs without fully understanding modern warfare's requirements. Based on the French Hotchkiss machine gun that Japan had licensed in 1905 during the Russo-Japanese War, the Type 92 incorporated refinements that actually degraded combat effectiveness. The Japanese military's experience had been primarily in China against poorly equipped forces where the Type 92's accurate single shots and short bursts proved adequate. They failed to anticipate the volume of fire needed against well-equipped American forces. The Japanese obsession with precision manufacturing reflected samurai traditions, valuing individual craftsmanship over mass production. Each Type 92 was essentially hand-built, with parts carefully fitted by skilled workers. This approach worked for producing small numbers of rifles or swords, but proved disastrous for military equipment needed in large quantities. The oil pump system, added to compensate for the lack of proper primary extraction in the original Hotchkiss design, showed Japanese engineers solving a mechanical problem without considering battlefield practicality. Japanese documents captured during the island-hopping campaign revealed growing awareness of American firepower advantage. A diary recovered from a Japanese officer on Saipan noted, "The enemy's machine guns fire continuously without pause. Our Type 92s must stop to reload every 30 rounds while the Americans seem to have endless ammunition. We cannot advance through their fire. One American gun does the work of 5 of ours." Another report from Guadalcanal stated, "Enemy automatic weapons create a solid wall of bullets. Our woodpecker cannot compete with their sustained fire. They have removed the human element from killing. It is pure machinery." The psychological impact was crushing. Japanese soldiers nicknamed American positions the lawn mower, for the way M1919 fire cut down attacking waves with mechanical efficiency. The continuous chatter of American machine guns, so different from the slower tock-tock-tock of the Type 92, became a sound that demoralized Japanese forces before attacks even began. A captured Japanese training manual from 1944 acknowledged, "The enemy's superior firepower, especially their machine guns, must be neutralized by night infiltration and close combat, where their advantages are minimized." Lieutenant Hiroaki Samishima, captured on Luzon, provided detailed testimony about the Type 92's failures. "We knew our machine gun was inferior. The oil pump constantly failed. In jungle humidity, the oil became like glue, mixing with plant matter and dirt. We spent more time cleaning than firing. The strips bent easily, and each held only 30 rounds. By the time we reloaded, the Americans had killed half our squad. We called their machine guns Hitler's zipper because of the sound, like a zipper opening, but much more terrible." The Japanese military's own analysis, found in documents at Kure Naval Base after the war, admitted, "The Type 92 heavy machine gun has proven inadequate against American forces. Their M1919 series weapons achieve fire superiority in every engagement. Recommendations for improvement cannot be implemented due to production limitations. Units must rely on courage to overcome mechanical disadvantage." American M1919 production maintained remarkably consistent quality throughout the war, even as monthly output increased from hundreds to thousands of units. Parts manufactured by Saginaw were completely interchangeable with those from Buffalo Arms or Rock Island Arsenal. This standardization meant that weapons could be repaired in the field, using parts from any manufacturer, or even cannibalized from damaged weapons. Quality control remained stringent through statistical sampling and rigid specifications. The simplified manufacturing processes developed for mass production actually improved reliability by increasing tolerances and eliminating unnecessary complexity. The production lines operated with ruthless efficiency. At Saginaw's plant, workers who had been building steering columns were retrained to produce machine guns. The company applied automotive mass production techniques, specialized machine tools, assembly line organization, and division of labor. Each worker performed specific operations repeatedly, achieving speed and consistency impossible with hand craftsmanship. By 1943, Saginaw alone was producing 10,000 M1919s per month, more than Japan's total annual Type 92 production. Japanese Type 92 production, conversely, showed declining quality as the war progressed. Early Type 92s manufactured by Tokyo Gas and Electric featured beautiful rust blue finishes and precisely fitted parts. The company's peacetime experience producing industrial equipment showed in the weapon's exceptional fit and finish. By 1944, shortcuts were evident everywhere. Rough machining marks, simplified sights, and increasingly poor metallurgy. The use of substitute materials as Japan's resources dwindled meant that late-war Type 92s were prone to parts breakage. Captured examples from 1945 showed cast steel replaced with inferior cast iron in non-critical parts, wooden handles instead of steel on training elevations, and simplified strip guides prone to jamming. The complex oil pump mechanism, already problematic, became even less reliable as manufacturing precision declined. Late-war pumps often delivered too much or too little oil, either drowning the action in lubricant that attracted debris or providing insufficient lubrication, leading to extraction failures. American intelligence reports noted that captured late-war Type 92s were virtually unusable without complete rebuilding. The Japanese military's own inspections rejected increasing percentages of new production, but desperation meant even substandard weapons were sent to combat units. The United States produced .306 ammunition in staggering quantities with perfect standardization. Whether manufactured in Denver, St. Louis, Salt Lake City, or dozens of other facilities, every round would function perfectly in any M1919. American forces in the Pacific received steady supplies of ammunition shipped in moisture-proof containers that prevented the corrosion that plagued Japanese ammunition in tropical conditions. By 1944, American factories were producing over 10 billion rounds annually, enough to supply continuous fire for every machine gun in service. Innovation continued throughout the war on both the weapon and its ammunition. Improved armor-piercing M2 rounds could penetrate Japanese bunkers and aircraft. Tracer ammunition for night fighting came in various types: standard red tracers for target marking, dim tracers for concealed positions, and delayed tracers that didn't ignite until 100 yards from the gun to avoid revealing the shooter's position. Incendiary rounds proved effective against Japanese aircraft and fuel depots. Specialized API, armor-piercing incendiary rounds, combined penetration with fire-starting capability. The M1919-6 variant, introduced in late 1943, added a shoulder stock, carrying handle, and bipod for increased portability. Though heavier than ideal for a light machine gun role at 32 pounds without the tripod, it gave American forces additional flexibility. Marine units in the Pacific developed numerous field modifications. The famous Basilone bale, a wire and wood handle that could be attached to hot barrels for emergency displacement, was developed by John Basilone himself, based on his Guadalcanal experience and later standardized for production. Marines also experimented with special mounts allowing M19-9s to be fired from the hip while advancing, though these proved impractical in combat. More successful were improvised anti-aircraft mounts created from salvaged materials, allowing M19-9s to engage low-flying Japanese aircraft. Tank crews welded additional M1919s to their vehicles' exteriors for extra firepower against Japanese infantry attacks. The weapon's simplicity meant that such modifications could be made with basic tools and minimal technical knowledge. Japan struggled to supply adequate quantities of 7.7mm ammunition for the Type 92. The special semi-rimmed cartridge required precise manufacturing that became increasingly difficult as American submarines strangled Japanese shipping and B-29s destroyed factories. The ammunition came in at least 4 different non-interchangeable variations of 7.7mm, creating logistics nightmares. The 30-round strips were fragile and easily damaged. Humidity could rust them together, while rough handling bent them beyond use. Unlike the robust cloth belts of the M1919, which could be linked together indefinitely, each Type 92 strip was a separate, failure-prone component. Japanese forces had no capacity for innovation. The Type 92 that fought at Guadalcanal in 1942 was essentially identical to those used in the final battles of 1945. No improvements were made to address the oil pump problems the feed strip limitations, or the excessive weight. Japanese industry, already strained to produce basic quantities, could not accommodate design changes that would require retooling. Even simple improvements like drain holes for water accumulation or larger trigger guards for gloved hands were never implemented. American machine gun crews received extensive training stateside before deployment. The M1919 was brilliantly simple to operate. Pull the bolt handle back twice to cock the weapon, feed the belt from the left side, and squeeze the trigger. Barrel changes could be accomplished in seconds with an asbestos mitt, though the procedure required opening the top cover, still far simpler than most contemporary designs. US doctrine emphasized volume of fire and mechanical simplicity. Machine gun crews were taught to work in teams, with assistant gunners managing ammunition and cooling while gunners maintained fire. The training emphasized practical skills over ceremony. Crews practiced immediate action drills until clearing jams became instinctive. They learned to recognize different malfunction sounds and could diagnose problems without looking. Range estimation, beaten zone adjustment, and traverse and elevation manipulation became second nature. Most importantly, American gunners were taught to fire and displace, shoot bursts, then move before enemy mortars could target them. The M1919's 45-pound weight made this practical. Crews could grab the gun and tripod and sprint to new positions. American doctrine also emphasized fire superiority through coordination. Machine guns were employed in pairs or groups with overlapping fields of fire creating kill zones no enemy could cross. Guns were positioned to provide mutual support. If one jammed or needed a barrel change, others would increase their rate of fire to compensate. This systematic approach to automatic weapons employment multiplied the effectiveness of individual guns. Japanese Type 92 crews required extensive training just to keep their weapons operational. The oil pump had to be adjusted precisely for temperature and humidity. Too much oil in cold weather would congeal, too little in hot weather would cause failures. The 30-round strips had to be loaded carefully to avoid bending the feed lips. The complex sights required constant calibration, with different settings for different ammunition types. Japanese doctrine emphasized accuracy over volume, with Type 92 crews trained to fire short, precise bursts at specific targets rather than sustained suppressive fire. This philosophical difference proved fatal. Japanese gunners were taught to conserve ammunition, picking targets carefully and firing deliberately. This made sense with limited ammunition supplies and slow reloading, but was wholly inadequate against American human wave tactics. Except Americans didn't use human waves, they used firepower. While a Japanese Type 92 crew carefully aimed at individual Marines, 3 or 4 M1919s would simply obliterate their position with concentrated fire. The M1919's reliability became legendary among Pacific veterans. Stories circulated of guns that continued firing after being buried in sand, submerged in seawater, or caked with volcanic ash from Iwo Jima. The loose tolerances that some critics cited as reducing accuracy actually allowed the weapon to function when fouled with debris, a crucial advantage in Pacific combat conditions. Marines reported M1919s that fired continuously for hours, with crews pouring water from their canteens onto the barrels to keep them cool enough to continue shooting. One famous incident on Okinawa involved an M1919 that had been blown off a cliff by a Japanese shell, falling 30 feet onto rocks. The gun was recovered, the bent tripod replaced, and it continued firing for the remainder of the campaign. Another M1919 on Guam was recovered from a swamp where it had been submerged for 3 days. After basic cleaning and lubrication, it functioned perfectly. These stories, verified by after-action reports, built confidence in American gunners who knew their weapons wouldn't let them down. The M1919's simplicity contributed to its reliability. With only a few moving parts, bolt, barrel, and feed mechanism, there was little to go wrong. The recoil operation meant that as long as ammunition was feeding, the gun would cycle. Even worn-out guns with excessive headspace would continue functioning, though accuracy might suffer. Field maintenance required only basic cleaning and lubrication with any available oil, including motor oil, cooking oil, or even coconut oil in emergencies. The Type 92's reputation was exactly opposite. American Marines learned to listen for the telltale silence when Type 92s jammed, using these moments to advance or reposition. The oiling system that was supposed to ensure reliability became the weapon's greatest weakness. In the humid jungles of Guadalcanal and New Guinea, oil mixed with moisture and plant debris to create a grimy paste that seized the mechanism. On the coral atolls like Tarawa and Peleliu, fine sand combined with oil to create an abrasive compound that destroyed the precisely fitted parts. Veterans reported that captured Type 92s were essentially useless without extensive maintenance. Even when properly cleaned and serviced, they required constant attention to keep functioning. The feed strips would rust in the humid Pacific air, binding together and refusing to feed. The oil pump would clog with debris, requiring complete disassembly to clear. The precisely fitted parts would seize from thermal expansion in the extreme heat. American intelligence concluded that the Type 92 required 5 times the maintenance hours of an M1919 to remain operational. The Battle of Okinawa from April to June 1945 provided the final, bloodiest comparison of these weapon systems. American forces had refined their machine gun tactics through 3 years of Pacific combat. M1919 crews worked in perfect coordination, creating interlocking fields of fire that made Japanese attacks suicidal. The battle's intensity meant that machine guns fired almost continuously for days at a time, providing the ultimate test of reliability and sustainability. During the massive Japanese counteroffensive of May 4, 1945, American machine guns faced human wave attacks of unprecedented intensity. M1919 crews from the 96th Infantry Division fired without pause for over 12 hours. Staff Sergeant Beaufort Anderson's machine gun section expended 30,000 rounds in a single night, wearing out 6 spare barrels, but never experiencing a stoppage. "We just kept feeding belts and changing barrels," Anderson recalled. "The gun never quit. Bodies piled up in front of our position until they blocked our field of fire, and we had to shoot through them." Japanese Type 92 crews at Okinawa fought with incredible bravery, but were hamstrung by their weapons' limitations. The inability to sustain fire meant that American forces could advance between reloading cycles. The 30-round strips were expended in seconds during intense firefights, leaving crews desperately trying to reload while under return fire. When Type 92s did score hits, the psychological effect was minimal compared to the overwhelming streams of fire from M1919s that could sweep an entire area clear of life in seconds. The cave warfare that characterized much of Okinawa's fighting highlighted another advantage of the M1919. Its portability meant that Marine and Army units could bring machine guns deep into cave complexes, providing firepower in confined spaces. The 122-pound Type 92 was essentially immobile in such conditions. American after-action reports noted that captured Type 92s were often found abandoned in caves, their crews unable to displace them when positions were overrun. Many were discovered with jammed mechanisms, broken feed strips scattered around the position, testament to their crews' desperate final moments. One telling statistic from Okinawa: American forces captured more than 200 Type 92 machine guns, but only 12 were in working condition. The rest had been abandoned due to malfunctions, destroyed by their crews to prevent capture, or were so worn out as to be irreparable. In contrast, American M1919s that had been in continuous combat since Guadalcanal were still functioning reliably 3 years later. The war's end revealed the full extent of the production disparity. The United States had manufactured nearly 390,000 M1919 machine guns in all variants, while Japan's total Type 92 production barely exceeded 45,000 units. This nearly 9-to-1 advantage in automatic weapons fundamentally shaped Pacific theatre combat. American forces could afford to expend ammunition lavishly, knowing that supplies were unlimited. Japanese forces had to husband every round, knowing that resupply was increasingly impossible. The M1919 continued serving American forces through Korea, Vietnam, and numerous other conflicts. Many Allied nations used the weapon into the 1990s, with some M1919s converted to 7.62mm NATO still in service today. The design influenced subsequent machine guns worldwide, with its belt-feed mechanism and quick-change barrel concept becoming standard features. The M60 machine gun that replaced it incorporated many M1919 design elements, proving the soundness of Browning's original concept. The Type 92, despite its limitations, earned grudging respect from American forces for the bravery of its crews. Captured weapons became prized souvenirs, though few Americans who acquired them realized how inferior they were to the M1919. Veterans would demonstrate captured Type 92s at stateside Bond rallies, showing amazed audiences the awkward feed strips and complex mechanism while emphasizing American technical superiority. Ironically, many Type 92s brought home as trophies survive in better condition today than they ever achieved in combat, lovingly maintained by collectors who have time for the constant attention these weapons require. Post-war analysis by American ordnance experts revealed just how flawed the Type 92 design was. Tests at Aberdeen Proving Ground showed that even under ideal conditions with perfect maintenance, the Type 92 could not match the M1919's sustained rate of fire. The oil pump system was fundamentally unsuited to military use, the feed strips were an obsolete technology, and the excessive weight made the weapon tactically inflexible. The report concluded that the Type 92 was a peacetime weapon unsuited for modern warfare. The contrast between the M1919 and Type 92 represented more than just different weapons. It revealed essential differences in industrial philosophy, military doctrine, and understanding of modern warfare. The American approach emphasized mass production, standardization, and overwhelming firepower. The M1919 was designed to be manufactured by automobile companies, maintained by teenagers with minimal training and employed in massive quantities. This philosophy extended throughout American military production: quantity with sufficient quality, rather than perfect weapons in insufficient numbers. America's industrial base, already the world's largest before the war, expanded dramatically to meet military needs. The same factories that built cars could build machine guns, using the same workers, tools, and techniques. This flexibility meant that production could be ramped up quickly and sustained indefinitely. The emphasis on interchangeable parts meant that logistics were simplified. Any part would fit any gun, any ammunition would work in any weapon. This standardization multiplied combat power by ensuring maximum availability. Japan's approach reflected a military tradition that valued individual warrior skill over industrial might. The Type 92's precision manufacturing and emphasis on accuracy over volume reflected samurai traditions poorly adapted to industrial warfare. The complex oiling system and feed strips showed an inability to recognize that battlefield reliability mattered more than peacetime performance. The weapon's weight and complexity revealed a basic misunderstanding of modern combat's requirements, that mobility and firepower were more important than precision. The psychological impact shaped combat throughout the Pacific. American forces knew their weapons were superior, breeding confidence that affected tactical decisions. Marines and soldiers would stand their ground against banzai charges, trusting their M1919s to deliver the firepower needed. They could advance aggressively, knowing that their machine guns could suppress any Japanese position. This confidence became self-fulfilling. Aggressive tactics succeeded because of firepower superiority, which reinforced the aggressive doctrine. Japanese forces, conversely, knew their Type 92s couldn't match American weapons, leading to increasingly desperate tactics. The banzai charges that characterized late-war Japanese tactics were partly born from the recognition that they couldn't win firefights against superior American firepower. If you can't match the enemy's volume of fire, the only option is to close to hand-to-hand range where firepower advantages are negated. This tactical desperation led to enormous casualties that hastened Japan's defeat. The industrial implications extended beyond just weapons. America's ability to mass-produce standardized equipment meant that every aspect of warfare, from ammunition to spare parts to training materials, could be supplied in unlimited quantities. Japan's artisan approach meant that each weapon was slightly different, each required specialized parts, and each demanded individual attention. This complexity multiplied through every aspect of logistics, creating impossible burdens on an already strained system. The morning of July 7, 1944, on Saipan, returned to where our story began, massive Japanese charges meeting American machine gun fire. But by this point in the war, the outcome was never in doubt. M1919 machine guns firing 400 to 600 rounds per minute from 250-round belts simply overwhelmed Type 92s, struggling with 30-round strips at 450 rounds per minute. The mathematical reality was inescapable. American guns could put 10 times the lead downrange in any given period. A single M1919 could fire continuously for a full minute without reloading, sending 400 to 600 rounds downrange. A Type 92 would need to reload 20 times to fire the same number of rounds, with each reload taking precious seconds under fire. When multiplied across thousands of combat encounters throughout the Pacific Theater, this firepower advantage translated into strategic dominance. Every Marine rifle company had machine guns that could dominate any battlefield. Every Army infantry battalion could create kill zones no Japanese force could cross. The M1919's reliability meant that American forces could depend on their automatic weapons in any condition: jungle humidity, coral dust, volcanic ash, or monsoon rain. Japanese troops knew their Type 92s might fail at critical moments, undermining tactical planning and morale. The production figures tell the ultimate story: 390,000 M199s versus 45,000. Type 92s meant that American forces enjoyed overwhelming numerical superiority in automatic weapons at every level of combat. This wasn't just about having more guns, it was about having more reliable guns, more ammunition, more spare parts, and more trained crews. The American advantage was multiplicative. More weapons firing more reliably for longer periods with unlimited ammunition created a firepower differential that no amount of courage could overcome. The M1919 Browning's success validated John Moses Browning's genius and American industrial capability. The weapon proved that careful engineering combined with mass production could create military equipment that provided decisive battlefield advantages. The .30-06 cartridge fired at 400 to 600 rounds per minute from a reliable, simple mechanism proved superior to the Type 92's precision engineering and complex operating system. The ability to sustain fire, to turn killing into an industrial process, determined victory in the Pacific. For Japan, the Type 92's failures represented the broader challenges of fighting an industrial war with artisan weapons. The gun's weight, complexity, and unreliability were symptoms of a military that had entered the modern age without fully understanding its requirements. The meticulous craftsmanship that might have impressed in peacetime proved disastrously inadequate when facing American mass production. The emphasis on individual marksmanship and precision could not compete with the American philosophy of volume and suppression. The Pacific War demonstrated conclusively that in modern warfare, the ability to deliver sustained, reliable firepower determined victory. American forces armed with M1919 Brownings could lay down walls of lead that no amount of courage could overcome. Japanese forces armed with Type 92s found themselves consistently outgunned, their precise but slow-firing weapons unable to match the overwhelming volume of American automatic weapons. The mathematical precision of American firepower, 400 to 600 rounds per minute from belt-fed weapons, overwhelmed the Type 92's 450 rounds per minute from 30-round strips. The human cost was staggering. Japanese infantry attacks that might have succeeded against enemies with comparable weapons were slaughtered by American machine gun fire. The banzai charges that had worked in China against poorly equipped forces became suicide against American firepower. Thousands of Japanese soldiers died trying to cross kill zones dominated by M1919s, their lives thrown away against an industrial killing machine they could not match. In the end, the contrast between these weapons tells the larger story of the Pacific War itself. The M1919 represented American industrial might, practical engineering, and understanding of modern warfare's requirements. It was a triumph of the adequate over the perfect, the practical over the theoretical, the industrial over the artisan. The Type 92 represented the limitations of a nation trying to fight an industrial war with weapons designed for a different era, built by methods suited for a different scale, and employed with tactics from a different century. When American machine guns opened fire on charging Japanese infantry, the outcome was predetermined by design decisions made years before in factories thousands of miles away. The M1919 Browning had won the production battle long before it dominated the battlefield, establishing itself as one of history's most successful military weapons, while the Type 92 became a symbol of Japan's inability to match American industrial warfare. The Pacific War was ultimately decided not by courage, both sides had that in abundance, but by the ability to mass-produce reliable weapons that could deliver overwhelming firepower. In that contest, the M1919's 390,000 units against the Type 92's 45,000 told the entire story.